All throughout our body, there are vibrations, and nowhere is that more prominent than in our brain. We have multiple different brain wave states that oscillate throughout our daily lives. When these brain waves become dysregulated, it can lead to a lot of different challenges. They can be mild, such as headaches and maybe some mild insomnia. It can also impact the way that we eat, overeat, binge eat. And yet, brainwave dysregulation can also cause problems like fibromyalgia, pain syndromes, chronic fatigue syndromes. It can cause or worsen panic, anxiety, depression, ADHD, lead to debilitating migraines, as well as learning disorders and memory loss associated with aging. Today, we are going to talk all about how we can gain back control over our brain waves, shifting us from high energy, scattered monkey mind into more calm, relaxed, Zen-like states, zoned states where we're creative and intuitive and passionate. And also looking towards how we can enhance our overall calmness and overall mental stability. Let's get to the show. Welcome to the Lindsay Elmore Show, a podcast that helps you find fulfillment amidst chaos. On this show, I interview thought leaders, doctors, creatives, spiritual gurus, and game changers who inspire you to pursue your dreams, overcome obstacles, and leave your mark. Dr. Patrick Porter is an award-winning scientist who has devoted his career to mental health and researching the brain. Dr. Porter's contributions to functional neuroscience are paving the way for brainwave entrainment, a new enhanced meditation practice that brings mindfulness to the next level. He is the most recent recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Interdisciplinary Association of Functional Neurosciences and Rehabilitation. He is also the creator of Brain Tap, and he has emerged as a leader in the digital health and wellness field. I learned so much from my conversation with Dr. Porter today about how we can learn about our different brain waves, how they interact with one another, and how we can train them to create better mental resilience. Dr. Patrick Porter, welcome to the Lindsay Elmore Show.
Well, thanks for having me, Lindsay. It's great to be here.
I don't know that many of our listeners are very familiar with how brain waves impact our daily lives. We have talked a little bit on the show about brain waves. We interviewed Dr. Christine Schaffner, who taught us about how brain waves can be impacted by the environment around us and how we really do have some vernacular. We're able to talk about an EEG, and we understand brain waves as it relates to people with epilepsy disorder. But break it down for me. Start at the basics. Teach me the difference between different brainwave patterns and when do they come into play throughout my everyday?
Okay. Well, there's actually 6 primary ones we talk about all the time with our audience. And number 1 is where we're at right now. Most people should be in a state called beta. Now, it's good to remember that all of them are going at one time. If you don't have any of them going at certain times, then there'll be a little bit of a problem happening, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But our primary prevailing awareness when we're awake should be in beta. This is what we call the reactionary mind. It's also the reason that people get in trouble, because when you get stuck in beta, it's kind of like being stuck in a low gear and you can't shift gears, you can't get out of it. We call this chronic low-level stress. Because in that brainwave state, we're simply reacting to information. And depending upon how we've been trained or how we've been motivated, There's a reason they say it takes 10 weeks to make a Marine, because they're training that Marine in a beta state. They want that Marine to be ready in a very alert, aware, fight or flight response kind of mechanism, where most people, when we get into that higher states of fight or flight, we shut down, because there's the freeze response, then we have the fight or flight, and then so most people just freeze. They don't do anything. But that's why it takes so long to learn in beta. Beta isn't the best brainwave to learn in. So if we drop down a little bit from beta state, we get into alpha. Alpha is kind of the hero of the day, because everybody's learning how to meditate, get outside themselves. But also, if you're hanging out with your friends and having a great time, and time seems to fly, if you enjoy gardening, golf, any of the pastimes you have, you're probably stepping into the alpha brainwave. And that alpha brainwave is the creative brainwave. We call it the intuitive mind, because when they actually say that Einstein hung out in alpha most of the time, which is not usual for a scientist, because most scientists are going to hang out more in a beta state, in a logical linear state. But between the alpha and beta state, there's a brainwave that's really important, especially for those of us that are getting better looking and more intelligent with age. Certain things happen to us. And there's something called the SMR, which is sensory motor rhythm. This brainwave actually has to do with your vestibular system or your balance. So as we get older, unfortunately, this is the brainwave that takes the biggest hit. And it's also the brainwave that brings us information across an area of the brain called the corpus callosum. So as we bring this information through our different hemispheres, when it's been, let's say, retarded, or something maybe has damaged it just from life itself, then we're not going to respond to information in the same way. So you can train to that. Now, the next one that is the one that we measure people's brains, and we've measured about 30,000 people over the last 10 years, and most people are missing theta. Theta is the brainwave that is right before sleep. It's a very small brainwave, between 7 to 4 hertz frequency. When we think about the person you're talking about before, our environment, everything in the physical universe is vibrating and teeming with energy. So there's something in physics called entrainment. Everything is oscillating. It's not just tuning forks that do it, but just like a tuning fork, if we hit a tuning fork and we have another tuning fork present, it's going to start oscillating and vibrating to that same frequency. We do this with people. We do this with our environment. We do this with everything in the known universe does this. And when things are oscillating together, they tend to stay together. They tend to band together. And if we don't oscillate with them, or we meet somebody and we don't like them, maybe we don't like their vibe, it's because we're picking up on that kind of frequency response that we have. But theta is best known for inventive mindsets. So all the great inventors all had a strategy that when they got in their lab and they got to a breaking point, Edison talks about it, Einstein talked about it. Einstein called it thought experiments. Edison talked about it as cat naps. Elon Musk talks about sitting down with a problem and creating a solution using this mental screen of space. Think of this is the first place we emerge from unconsciousness. So delta is the deep sleep state. So as we go through these different brain waves, we're coming out of sleep. The first one we enter into is theta. And we've all probably have an experience where we woke up, we heard a song on the radio. Maybe we didn't like that song, but it stuck in our head all day long. That's because we woke up in a state of hypermnesia, super memory. So theta is the brainwave state of super memory, super consciousness, really. And that's the brainwave state we hung out in until we were about 7 years old. That's why if you're, Lindsay, if you're someone who speaks more than one language, or if our listeners out there that speaks more than one language, you have a brain circuit that didn't shut down, and it operates in the theta brainwave pattern. So you just absorb languages differently than someone who only has learned one, because our brain is an energy hog, and it's going to try to shut down to conserve energy. Delta is one of our critical brainwave states that when we're awake, it should be very minimal. But what we found in these scans is that over 90% of the people we scanned have a high degree of delta brainwave activity going while they're awake. This shows us a couple of things. One, it shows us that there's a lot of inflammation in the brain. So that's causing them to try to shut down and go to sleep. Or maybe they had brain trauma, something's happening there. But if you have high delta, what we liken it to is running with a parachute behind you. It always seems like there's a drag on the system. You just don't have the energy you need. You didn't quite wake up. Your body's trying to go back to sleep. But if you don't reach the deep states, then unfortunately what happens in our research we found is that if they don't retrain the brain, then when they wake up, their brain stays in delta. When they go to sleep, it flips on to beta and they can't go to sleep. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. They're not getting the sleep they need because all day long they're tired and they can't get to sleep. But then that monkey mind turns on as soon as they get into bed and they can't turn it off.